We are live.
We are live. We're alive.
Allegedly.
I went over to my friend's house today. There was like a play date with the kids, and I was there. And Ruth and Joey, they were cleaning the garage and like reorganizing it, and there was nothing for me to do to help because they're very competent. And I was like, "That looks like fun. I want to clean a thing. Can I clean Dom's room? Dom's room is your typical 9-year-old, like waist deep in all of her crap." Clothes, blankets, Barbies, Shopkins, random things piled up. I was like, "Can I clean that?" And they were like, "Yeah." So I did. Well, I got half of it done. It was very, very nice.
I cannot relate to finding that fun, but I'm happy you had a good time.
I did.
Also, I like that shirt. It makes your eyes look very green.
Oh, thank you. It's a dress, and it's very beat up. It's got like paint on it and stuff.
Who cares?
I'm down. Yeah, that's how I advertise. I'm a painter.
Exactly.
See?
Right? I tried to just put broken computer parts on me, but it was very uncomfortable.
Right? No. Maybe make them into jewelry. I've seen wire wrapped Arduinos and things as pendants. They're very pretty.
That's cool.
Yeah.
For those who have not been here the entire time, I will be eating a quesadilla. So I will be on mute whilst chewing because misophonia is a thing and no one needs to experience that. Are you familiar with misophonia?
I'm not familiar with the word, but I think I can imagine.
Yeah, it's that like incredibly grossed out, upset, horrified feeling some people get when they hear someone chew.
The opposite of ASMR.
Basically, yeah.
A repulsion.
Although I've never thought of it quite that way. Oh man, can I tell you a story?
Do.
So we were discussing at work today in our meeting, everyone's first job, and one of my team said, "Well, I worked at a frozen yogurt place. I was a yogurt slinger." And I did that. I was like, "That's great, uh-huh." And one of my other coworkers like kind of covered his face like this, so I thought he had gotten the joke. And then later on, we were also talking about what was your shortest job, and so the same guy said, "Well, I worked at a grocery store in the dairy case for one day." And my coworker that I thought knew what he was doing said, "Did you get that job by saying I've been slinging yogurt since 1994?" And I had to turn my camera off because I was losing it. Like, I can't believe you said that. No one else is laughing. I'm like, everyone else must have way better self-control than me. I'm the unprofessional one here. Turns out no one else got the joke. Because I texted him later and I was like, "I can't believe you said that, and I can't believe I'm the only one who laughed." And he went, "Said what?" And then about 5 minutes later, he went, "Wait, is that a penis reference?" And I was like, "Yes, obviously, you sweet summer child." He had no idea. He was like, "I can't believe I said that. I didn't mean it that way." I'm like, "Uh-huh. Sure.
It's safe to say that most everything is a penis joke.
Indeed."
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to tease him about it for the rest of time.
It makes me think of what is it? I am not the noun verber. I am the noun verber's son, but I will verb this noun till the noun verb comes.
I am not the fig plucker is what you're thinking of.
Fig plucker. No, pheasant plucker.
I've always heard it as fig plucker, but it doesn't really matter.
It does for scansion purposes. I am not the pheasant plucker, I'm the pheasant plucker's son, but I will sit and pluck this pheasant till the pheasant plucker comes.
It depends on what you want the scansion to be.
No, proper scansion.
Meh.
Meh.
Anyway, so speaking of pheasant pluckers, where are we at?
Not to mention yogurt slingers. Let's get back.
Oh God, hopefully not.
Party. Do, 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 do. Fly off with our prisoners. Knotted it in a loose bracelet. Pick up those prisoners, said Ooglook. You'll get bed and breakfast all right. More than you can stomach. Is that where we were? Or payment is only put off?
Payment is only put off. I was going to say it was after Pippin tried to run away.
Right? Yep, that seems right. Neither Pippin. Are you still there? There you are.
I turned off my camera because chewing also looks really weird. But I'm here. I will unmute when I have comments.
You will just be this little black screen that occasionally speaks.
Yes, I will be the void this evening. Please do not scream into me. I do scream back.
I feel like I've been painting into the void lately. Not like, well, I have friends. I have 30 people who will be like, yay, every time I post something, and that's good. But like, when you're working on 118 paintings, you expect a stadium to respond. Not expect, but you hope. You hope that someone out there who isn't somebody who already loves me and is awesome and part of my family already is going to be like, whoa! So as far as like beyond the family is concerned, I am painting into the void.
Well, you have to find the places where those other people are and put your paintings there, because if you just put them on your Instagram and they don't follow you on Instagram, they're never going to know.
Exactly, I know, but that's where my genius is cramped, is finding any kind of people who don't already know me and then telling them I'm awesome and convincing them of such. It's
Yeah, it is an entirely separate skill set.
One that I've spent 20 years failing to develop, so I don't know if it's in me. We've had this conversation where I'm like, can I please just admit that, like ballet or skeet shooting, this just isn't my thing? And get somebody else to do it.
And as I recall, I said yes.
Thank you. I still feel a lot of shame for having that hang up.
There's really no shame in not being interested in marketing. I, for one, have been refusing to do any sort of marketing for years. Like, that's what my degree would have been good for. And I was like, nope.
Right.
Just got to find the right person to help you out with it.
Person or people. I've got multiple people expressing interest in various bits. Like Drea's gonna help me clean up my shops, and I think Corin's gonna help with other things. Yeah, I've got people.
You've got people. You've got a village.
They're just, yeah. It takes a village to pitch an artist. Anyway, neither Pippin nor Merry remembered much of the later part of the journey. Evil dreams and evil waking were blended into a long tunnel of misery, with hope growing ever fainter behind. 2020 mood.
Mm-hmm.
They ran, and they ran, striving to keep up the pace set by the orcs, licked every now and again with a cruel thong cunningly handled. If they halted or stumbled, they were seized and dragged for some distance. The warmth of the orc draft had gone, Pippin felt cold and sick again. Suddenly he fell face downward on the turf. Hard hands with rending nails gripped and lifted him. He was carried like a sack once more, and darkness grew about him. Whether the darkness of another night or a blindness of his eyes, he could not tell. Dimly he became aware of voices clamoring. It seemed that many of the orcs were demanding a halt. Ugluk was shouting. He felt himself flung to the ground, and he lay as he fell till black dreams took him. But he did not long escape from pain. Soon the iron grip of merciless hands was on him again. For a long time he was tossed and shaken, and then slowly the darkness gave way, and he came back to the waking world and found that it was morning. Orders were shouted, and he was thrown roughly on the grass. There
This
he
part is
lay.
way more traumatizing in the book than it is in the movie.
Yeah, it's way more real. I've always... People find strength in books a lot, and this one has been a big one for me when I was going through chemo, when I was quitting smoking. Like, any time that I've been in wretched amounts of pain, this sequence helps me out. It's like Merry and Pippin made it. They made it. I'll make it too.
And that is the importance of fiction, friends.
Oh yeah, well written, and not sugar-coated. Where are you going to find strength in your tribulations if none of your characters ever go through tribulations? There he lay for a while, fighting with despair. His head swam, but from the heat in his body he guessed that he had been given another draught. An orc stooped over him and flung him some bread and a strip of raw, dried flesh. He ate the stale grey bread, hungrily, but not the meat. He was famished, but not yet so famished as to eat flesh flung to him by an orc, the flesh of he dared not guess what creature.
It's a solid point.
Right. He sat up and looked about. Mary was not far away. They were by the banks of a swift, narrow river. Ahead, mountains loomed. A tall peak was catching the first rays of the sun. A dark smudge of forest lay on the lower slopes before them. There was much shouting and debating among the orcs. A quarrel seemed on the point of breaking out again between the Northerners and the Isengarders. Some were... What are you doing?
Oh, sorry. Forgot I wasn't muted still.
What is it?
Plastic bag with my knitting in it.
Oh, it sounded like, I don't know, cartoon bubble sound effects. He sat up and looked about. Mary was not far away. They were by the banks of a swift, narrow river, ahead mountains, A dark smudge of forest lay on the lower slopes before them. There was much shouting. I'm sorry, I totally lost where I was. I should put my finger on it. Some were pointing back away south, and some were pointing eastward. Very well, said Ugluk. Leave them to me, then. No killing, as I've told you before. But if you want to throw away what we've come all the way to get, throw it away. I'll look after it. Let the fighting Uruk-hai do the work, as usual. If you're afraid of the Whiteskins, run. Run. There's the forest, he shouted, pointing ahead. Get to it. It's your best hope. Off you go, and quick before I knock a few more heads off to put sense into the others. There was some cursing and scuffling, and then most of the Northerners broke away and dashed off, over 100 of them, running wildly along the river toward the mountains. The hobbits were left with the Isengarders, a grim, dark band, 80 at least, of large, swart, slant-eyed orcs, with great bows and short, broad-bladed swords. A few of the larger and bolder northerners remained with them. Now we'll deal with Grishnak, said Ugluk. But some, even of his own followers, were looking uneasily southwards. I know, growled Ugluk. The cursed horse boys have got wind of us. But that's all your fault, Snaga. You and the other scouts ought to have your ears cut off. But we are the fighters. We'll feast on horse flesh yet, or something better. Incidentally, I learned recently that Snaga isn't a name. It means slave. Their scouts, all of theirs, the ones that follow scents, the ones that are used by other orcs, they're all called Snaga. When we get to Mordor, there's going to be one called Snaga. It's just a title, right?
There's a lot to unpack within the orcs' social hierarchies, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah. It's about ideology, is what it is. All metaphoric. At that moment, Pippin saw why some of the troop had been pointing eastward. From that direction there now came hoarse cries, and there was Grishnak again, and at his back a couple of score of others like him, long-armed, crook-legged orcs. They had a red eye painted on their shields. Ugluk stepped forward to meet them. So you've come back, he said. Thought better of it, eh? I've returned to see that orders are carried out and the prisoners safe, answered Grishnak. Indeed, said Ugluk. Waste of effort. I'll see that orders are carried out in my command. What else did you come back for? You went in a hurry. Did you leave anything behind? I left a fool, snarled Grishnak. But there were some stout fellows with him that are too good to lose. I knew you'd lead them into a mess. I've come to help them. Splendid, laughed Ugluk. But unless you've got some guts for fighting, you've taken the wrong way. Lugbirth was your road. The Whiteskins are coming. What's happened to your precious Nazgul? Has he had another mount shot under him? Now, if you brought him along, that might have been useful, if these Nazgul are all they make out. Nazgul, said Grishnak, shivering and licking his lips as if the word had a foul taste that he savored painfully.
That's quite a mental image.
You speak of what is deep beyond the reach of your muddy dreams, Ugluk, he said. Nazgul, all that they make out. One day he'll wish that you had not said that. Ape, he snarled fiercely. You ought to know that they're the apple of the great eye. But the winged Nazgul? Not yet, not yet. He won't let them show themselves across the great river yet. Not too soon. They're for the war and other purposes. You seem to know a lot, said Ugluk. More than is good for you, I guess. Perhaps those in Lugbirths might wonder how and why. But in the meantime, the Uruk-hai of Isengard can do the dirty work, as usual. Don't stand slavering there. Get your rabble together. The other swine are legging it to the forest. You'd better follow. You wouldn't get back to the great river alive. Right off the mark. Now, I'll be on your heels. The Isengarders seized Merry and Pippin again and slung them on their backs. Then the troops started off. Hour after hour, they ran, pausing now and again only to sling the hobbits to fresh carriers, either because they were quicker and hardier, or because of some plan of Grishnak's, the Isengarders gradually passed through the orcs of Mordor and also on and Grishnak's folk closed in behind. Soon they were gaining also on the northerners ahead. The forest began to draw nearer. Pippin was bruised and torn. His aching head was grated by the filthy jowl and hairy ear of the orc that held him. Immediately in front were bowed backs and tough, thick legs going up and down, unresting, as if they were made of wire and horn, beating out the nightmare seconds of an endless time. Another mood. In the afternoon, Ugluk's troop overtook the northerners. They were flagging in the rays of the bright sun, winter sun shining in a pale, cool sky though it was. Their heads were down and their tongues lolling out. "Maggots!" jeered the Isengarders. "You're cooked! The Whiteskins will catch you and eat you! They're coming!" A cry from Grisnak showed that this was not mere jest. Horsemen, riding very swiftly, had indeed been sighted. Still far behind, but gaining on the orcs, gaining on them like a tide over the flats on folk straying in a quicksand. The Isengarders began to run with a redoubled pace that astonished Pippin, a terrific spurt, it seemed, for the end of a race. Then he saw that the sun was sinking, falling behind the misty mountains. Shadows reached over the land. The soldiers of Mordor lifted their heads and also began to put on speed. The forest was dark and close. Already they had passed a few outlying trees. The land was beginning to slope upward ever more steeply, but the orcs did not halt. Both Ugluk and Grisnak shouted, spurring them on to a last effort. "They will make it yet. They will escape," thought Pippin. And then he managed to twist his neck so as to glance back with one eye over his shoulder. He saw that riders away eastward were already level with the orcs, galloping over the plain. The sunset gilded their spears and helmets and glinted in their pale flowing hair. They were hemming the orcs in, preventing them from scattering and driving them along the line of the river. He wondered very much what kind of folk they were. He wished now that he had learned more in Rivendell, and looked more at maps and things, but in those days the plans for the journey seemed to be in more competent hands, and he had never reckoned with being cut off from Gandalf or from Strider, and even from Frodo. All that he could remember about Rohan was that Gandalf's horse, Shadowfax, had come from that land. That sounded hopeful as far as it went. "But how will they know that we are not orcs?" he thought. "I don't suppose they've ever heard of hobbits down here. I suppose I ought to be glad that the beastly orcs look like being destroyed, but I would rather be saved myself." The chances were that he and Merry would be killed together with their captors before ever the men of Rohan were aware of them. A few of the riders appeared to be bowmen, skilled at shooting from a running horse. Riding swiftly into range, they shot arrows at the orcs that straggled behind, and several of them fell. Then the riders wheeled away out of the range of the answering bows of their enemies, who shot wildly, not daring to halt. This happened many times, and on one occasion arrows fell among the Isengarders. One of them, just in front of Pippin, stumbled and did not get up again. "Fred!"
Not Fred! He was my favorite!
Oh, what's the, "You killed Fritz!"
What's that from?
Oh, God. A Bakshi film from the early 80s called Wizards.
Oh, Wizards. I've seen Wizards.
Yeah. "They killed Fritz! Those lousy, stinking yellow fairies! Those miserable—" I can't remember the rest.
You know what I remember about Wizards is watching it with the dude I was dating at the time and him just being like, Is this a kids movie? Well, not as such. No, can't say that it is.
I first saw it when I was 6 or 7, and I loved it. Loved it. Still love it. Haven't watched it since then. Probably wouldn't be as impressed with it.
As someone who first saw it as an adult, you definitely would not.
No. No, although one of the cosplays I've always wanted to do is Princess What's Her Butt because she's nice and curvy, and she's one I wouldn't have to lose a lot of weight.
She's so objectified though. Like it's really weird because she looks like 18 and she's super curvy and whatever and not wearing a lot of
Nipples
clothes and so
showing through
forth.
her shirt kind of thing.
Hmm?
Nipples showing through her shirt. Or
Yeah, and then the old like immortal 100-something-year-old wizard is like, she's like, "Oh, I love you so much," and he's like, "Okay, I guess I'll sleep with you," and you're just like,
it's
no,
it's true.
no.
It's ridiculous. Oh, and her ditzy bimbo moments where he's like, oh, she asks him a question and he's like, I don't know, I'll think about it for a while. You just sit there. And she's like, okay. On the other hand, when a battle's commencing and she whips out her sword and it's like, rah! And I'm like, yeah.
Sure.
For Montagar forever! Ah! And her father gets murdered and she's like, gets to go on a berserker rampage. Like, it's not perfect.
It's extremely not perfect. I think the Berserker Rampage thing is it's the other side of the same coin.
Sure. There's a lot of animators whose fantasy is a woman wearing not much going on a berserker rampage. On the other hand, I don't care. She's fun, and I could make those wings, have my nipples showing.
We did cancel Bra 2020. I think you and I already discussed that. So
Exactly. Leave a comment if you agree that wizards would be fun to cosplay, not just Princess. God damn it! Leave a comment if you remember her name.
I could Google it. I'm not going to, but I could.
Don't bother. I own the DVD. I just haven't bothered to watch it yet because life.
Sure.
I think it's in our list of Friday movies. Night came down without the riders closing in for battle. Many orcs had fallen, but fully 200 remained. In the early darkness, the orcs came to a hillock. The eaves of the forest were very near, probably no more than 3 furlongs away, but they could go no further. Have we discussed the fact that a furlong is a city block?
I don't know if we did. It sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't know if we discussed it like now or at some point in the last 30 years.
Exactly. Yeah. So a furlong is 1/8 of a mile, and a city block tends to be about 1/8 of a mile. So if you want to picture the furlongs, that might help.
How far away? How many furlongs was it again?
3.
They were 3 blocks away.
They were 3 blocks.
Yeah, that's not far. That's not a lot of space.
No, but they could go no further. The horsemen had encircled them. A small band disobeyed Ugluk's command and ran on towards the forest. Only 3 returned. Well, here we are, sneered Grishnak. Fine leadership. I hope the great Ugluk will lead us out again. Put
he
those
won't.
things down, ordered Ugluk, taking no notice of Grishnak. You, Lugdush, get 2 others and stand guard over them. They're not to be killed unless the filthy whiteskins break through. Understand? As long as I'm alive, I want 'em. But they're not to cry out, and they're not to be rescued. Bind their legs. The last part of the order was carried out mercilessly, but Pippin found that for the first time he was close to Merry. The orcs were making a great deal of noise, shouting and clashing their weapons, and the hobbits managed to whisper together for a while. "I don't think much of this," said Merry. "I feel nearly done in. Don't think I could crawl away far, even if I was free." "Lembas," whispered Pippin. "Lembas, I've got some. Have you? I don't think they've taken anything but our swords." "Yes, I had a packet in my pocket," answered Merry. "But it must be battered to crumbs. Anyway, I can't put my mouth in my pocket." "You won't have to. But just then a savage kick warned Pippin that the noise had died down, and the guards were watchful. The night was close and still. All round the knoll on which the orcs were gathered, little watchfires sprang up, golden red in the darkness, a complete ring of them. They were within a long bow shot, but the riders did not show themselves against the light, and the orcs wasted many arrows shooting at the fires, until Ugluk stopped them. The riders made no sound. Later in the night, when the moon came out of the mist, then occasionally they could be seen, shadowy shapes that glinted now and again in the white light as they moved in ceaseless patrol. "I'll wait for the sun, curse them," growled one of the guards. "Why don't we get together and charge through? What's old Ugluk think he's doing, I should like to know?" "I dare say you would," snarled Ugluk, stepping up from behind. "Meaning I don't think at all, eh? Curse you! You're as bad as the other rabble, the maggots and the apes of Lugberts. No good trying to charge with them. They just squeal and bolt. There are more than enough of these filthy horse boys to mop up our lot on the flat. There's only one thing those maggots can do. They can see like gimlets in the dark. But these whiteskins have better night eyes than most men, from all I've heard. And don't forget their horses. They can see the night breeze, or so it's said. Still, there's one thing the fine fellows don't know. Malhur and his lads are in the forest, and they should turn up any time now." Ugluk's words were enough, apparently. Poor Malhur. Malhur?
Yeah, whatever his name is, he didn't have a good time.
No.
It is pretty funny because that part's not in the movie, and it's pretty funny to think about the orcs being like, "Oh yeah, totally, our allies are in the forest," and we're like, "Ooh, that forest ate those guys."
I think they appear sort of, and then they immediately get vanquished because the forest isn't quite awake yet. Right. So like they arrive, they try to have a sortie, and the Rohirrim just sort of wipe them out immediately. It's like, got any other backup there, Ugluk?
Do you want us to wait? We can make a sandwich if they're late.
Ugluk's words were enough, apparently, to satisfy the Isengarders, but the other orcs were both dispirited and rebellious. They posted a few watchers, but most of them lay on the ground, resting in the pleasant darkness. It did, indeed, become very dark again, for the moon passed westward into thick cloud, and Pippin could not see anything a few feet away. The fires brought no light to the hillock. The riders were not, however, content merely to wait for the dawn and let their enemies rest. A sudden outcry on the east side of the knoll showed that something was wrong. It seemed that some of the men had ridden in close, slipped off their horses, crawled to the edge of the camp, and killed several orcs, and then had faded away again. Guerrilla tactics. Love me some Rohirrim. Ugluk dashed off to stop a stampede. Pippin and Merry sat up. Their guards, Isengarders, had gone with Ugluk. But if the hobbits had any thought of escape, it was soon dashed. A long, hairy arm took each of them by the neck and drew them close together. Dimly they were aware of Grishnak's great head and hideous face between them. His foul breath was on their cheeks. He began to paw them and feel them. Pippin
Ew.
shuddered as hard, cold fingers groped down his back. Ew.
Gross.
So gross. Well, my little ones, said Grishnak in a soft whisper, enjoying your nice rest, or not? A little awkwardly placed, perhaps. Swords and whips on one side, and nasty spears on the other. Little people should not meddle in affairs that are too big for them. His fingers continued to grope. There was a light like a pale, hot fire behind his eyes.
I just don't like the word grope.
No. It is very uncomfortable. Very, very Weinstein moment here.
It's one of those things where, like, grope is never a good thing.
No.
It's like the word damp. It's never good. You're never like, man, I love how damp this is.
Moist is the one that's most popularly.
Right. Everybody has that thing about the word moist, but like that can be a good thing.
Sure.
You want your cake
for your headache.
Yeah. Or yeah, this cake is so moist.
Yeah. But a damp cake is not.
No. That's very upsetting.
Grope is like leer. You don't no one leers who has any good intentions.
Exactly.
And you don't leer at a sunset. Like you can just
not with that attitude.
Oh.
Hey, I noticed you're very pink there.
Speaking of which, oh my god. So we were on our way to get boba the other night, and there was enough smoke in the sky that the sun, as it was sinking, turned exactly the color of the sun in that Monet painting that we love that you got me for Christmas. Exactly. Like I kept getting after images because it was so beautiful. I kept looking towards it and then being like, no, look away. But ow, but ow. It was so beautiful. It made me wonder if Monet painted that on a day when there was a lot of smoke in the air. Like, how could he have gotten exactly that color? And the sky even had that sort of dove look to it. And that the sun was a perfect disc, and it was just so awesome.
It's very possible that he did. I mean, that was what, around the 1880s. There would have been a lot of smoke in the air.
Right? It's a cold day. There would have been wood smoke. Or people burning the fields for reasons. Yeah. It totally it made that painting even better for me to be like, there it is.
That's the thing.
Yeah. I may well have leered at that sunset.
I feel very confident you did not.
I don't know how to leer.
That also is a thing. Like what actual face is that? Have you ever seen anyone in real life make that face?
I've seen what I would describe as a leer a few times, but it's never the same on two different faces. It's a totally different expression. And it's not on anyone that I would consider a friend.
Well, I mean, obviously.
Friends don't leer.
Okay, I do have some friends that leer. Because I'm friends with Caitlin. But that is consensual leering.
Okay.
Caitlin is the only person who can get away with that.
Caitlin makes leering look good.
Caitlin makes many things look good that the rest of us humans are not capable of making look good.
Absolutely not. No. Caitlin's got the card. I can get away with this card. And this is not specified.
Right. She's got just the license that says I can do whatever I want, and it's like you wrote this in crayon. Like, yeah, so
Yeah.
hey.
Yeah. Oh.
That was my Caitlin impression.
I wanted to write it in crayon, so I did.
Anyway, so Grishnak was groping the hobbits in presumably a non-sexual but still very uncomfortable way.
Yeah. The thought came suddenly into Pippin's mind, as if caught direct from the urgent thought of his enemy. Grishnak knows about the ring. He's looking for it while Uglook is busy. He probably wants it for himself. Can you imagine the world where Grishnak got a hold of the ring for himself?
Yeah, it'd be the world where Sauron got a hold of the ring approximately 7.5 minutes later.
Yeah, not consensually though. Grishnak is a small streak of mucus on the ground at that point.
Oh yeah.
Like, no, it's mine.
Right. I get the impression that Grishnak is one of those guys who thinks he's a lot smarter than he actually is.
Right. Cold fear was in Pippin's heart, yet at the same time he was wondering what use he could make of Grishnak's desire. I don't think you'll...
Pippin's such a badass in this scene. Like this whole time he's like, "Oh, I'm not really good for anything. I'm just luggage. I'm just going to escape and also make use of my enemy's like desire for the ring to get him to help me and like yeah. Or not help me, but whatever he does with that. But anyway.
And the when someone drops a dead body on him, he uses its knife to cut his bonds, like
right, and then has enough thought to like retie them so no one can tell that he's cut. Pippin's a badass.
He's a badass. I fucking love Pippin. I don't think you will find it that way, he whispered. It isn't easy to find. Find it? Said Grishnak. His fingers stopped crawling and gripped Pippin's shoulder. Find what? What are you talking about, little one? For a moment, Pippin was silent. Then suddenly in the darkness he made a noise in his throat. Oh, oh. Nothing, my precious, he added. The hobbits felt Grishnak's fingers twitch. Oh, hissed the goblin softly. That's what he means, is it? Oh, very, very dangerous, my little ones. Perhaps, said Mary, now alert and aware of Pippin's guess. Perhaps, and not only for us. Still, you know your own business best. Do you want it or not? And what would you give for it? Do I want it? Do I want it? Said Grishnak, as if puzzled, but his arms were trembling. What would I give for it? What do you mean? We mean, said Pippin, choosing his words carefully, that it's no good groping in the dark. Words to live by.
Indeed.
We could save you time and trouble, but you must untie your legs first, or we'll do nothing and say nothing. My dear, tender little fools, hissed Grishnak. Everything you have and everything you know will be got out of you in due time. Everything. You'll wish there was more that you could tell to satisfy the questioner. Indeed you will. Questioner is capitalized. It made me wonder for a long time.
Probably a job.
Right? In Barad-dûr, like, there's a fucking Inquisition in Barad-dûr. They've got enough people to question that there's someone whose full-time job is a capital Q questioner.
Dictators are never secure in their power.
He doesn't even dictate as much as he wants to.
And that's why he feels so insecure in his power that he needs to have an inquisition to make sure the orcs never revolt.
Right? Which, I mean, even if they did, they wouldn't get very far because they're all assholes who stab each other in the back all the time.
True. But
Crab
they
bucket.
probably stab each other in the back all the time because they've been raised not to trust each other because anyone might turn you over to the questioner.
That's true. Yep. And they also would, at the same time as they fear each other's betrayal, are willing to betray each other. So you have a crab bucket situation.
Yep. And the thing about crabs is they don't spontaneously appear in buckets. Someone puts them in.
Sauron, you bastard! They don't spontaneously appear.
It's true. When you're thinking about the social dynamics of the crab bucket theory, you have to realize that crabs don't put themselves in the bucket.
They do not. No, they do not. But they definitely keep themselves in the bucket.
Anyway, orcs probably also don't spontaneously appear in buckets, although I don't know that for a fact.
People are like, of course they're unpleasant. They live in the most unpleasant country. They're downtrodden. And I'm like, they've got the only volcano. That means they've got volcanic soil. That means that Mordor could be Hawaii.
Yeah, and
yet they've
look what happened to
industrialized.
Hawaii.
Well, yeah, but it's still a fucking paradise. Like,
Well, I mean, all the parts that the white people haven't fucked up.
stupid orcs.
Fucking orcs, man.
Fucking orcs.
White people are the orcs. You heard it here first.
It's true. Certain white people. I don't classify myself as an orc, and I'm pretty sure I'm white.
I mean, white people as a group must grapple with our orcishness.
Absolutely.
And make sure that we are not being orcs, even if we don't think we're being orcs.
We could choose to be elves and preserve all things unstained. And give succor to travelers. Although succor is a terrible word.
I was thinking that. I was like, what, like good at the bank? Ooh, butterscotch flavor. Thanks, Galadriel.
Man, I got grape. Why is the mystery one always grape?
Seriously, though. Always.
Every time.
And side note, butterscotch is the best flavor of Dum Dum.
Absolutely. You know what's even better is if you can get a butterscotch and a root beer and have them at the same time.
It's also pretty good.
Cream soda is what it tastes like. It's so good.
Well, I have no idea where we were.
You'll wish there was more you could tell to satisfy the questioner. Indeed, you will. Quite soon. We shan't hurry the inquiry. Oh, dear, no. What do you think you've been kept alive for? My dear little fellows, please believe me when I say that it was not out of kindness. That's not even one of Ugluk's faults.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were aware of that, given how you whipped them and made them run for 48 hours.
Right.
Like, pretty clear that it wasn't out of kindness.
Mother, well, I ate my mother. I find it quite easy to believe, said Mary. But you haven't got your prey home yet, and it doesn't seem to be going your way, whatever happens. If we come to Isengard, it won't be the great Grishnak that benefits. Saruman will take all that he can find. If you want anything for yourself, now is the time to do a deal. Grishnak began to lose his temper. The name of Saruman seemed specially to enrage him. Time was passing, and the disturbance was dying down. Ugluk or the Isengarders might return at any minute. Have you got it? Either of you? He snarled. Go, go, said Pippin. Untie our legs, said Mary. They felt the orc's arms trembling violently. I know we're almost out of time, but there's like a page left in this.
Yeah, let's finish it out.
Okay. "Curse you, you filthy little vermin," he hissed. "Untie your legs. I'll untie every string in your bodies. Do you think I can't search you to the bones? Search you? I'll cut you both to quivering shreds. I don't need the help of your legs to get you away, and have you all to myself." Suddenly he seized them. The strength in his long arms and shoulders was terrifying. He tucked them, one under each armpit, and crushed them fiercely to his sides. A great stifling hand was clapped over each of their mouths. Then he sprang forward, stooping low. I pictured this one day as double football hold, and it stuck.
Yep. Yep, that's exactly what I was picturing.
Yep.
Also, imagine how crazy he would have been if one of them actually had the ring, because it would have been influencing him. Like, it would have gone so much worse.
Yeah, right. Then he sprang forward, stooping low. Quickly and silently he went until he came to the edge of the knoll. There, choosing a gap between the watchers, he passed like an evil shadow out into the night, down the slope and away westward towards the river that flowed out of the forest. In that direction there was a wide open space with only one fire. After going a dozen yards, he halted, peering and listening. Nothing could be seen or heard. He crept slowly on, bent almost double. Then he squatted and listened again. Then he stood up, as if to risk a sudden dash. At that very moment, the dark form of a rider loomed up right in front of him. How did he miss that? Was the horse lying down?
The rider wasn't on the horse. I think it's just a dude.
You sure?
Does it mention a horse at any point?
Yes! A horse snorted and reared. A man called out.
Well, yeah, I got nothing. Grishnak's a really bad spy.
Grisnak flung himself on the ground flat, dragging the hobbits under him. Then he drew his sword. No doubt he meant to kill his captives rather than allow them to escape or to be rescued. But it was his undoing. The sword rang faintly and glinted a little in the light of the fire away to his left. An arrow came whistling out of the gloom. It was aimed with skill or guided by fate, and it pierced his right hand. He dropped the sword and shrieked. There was a quick beat of hoofs, and even as Grisnak leaped up and ran, he was ridden down and a spear passed through him. He gave...
Good freaking riddance.
Right? So you get for groping.
Fucking groper.
He gave a hideous, shivering cry and lay still. The hobbits remained flat on the ground as Grisnak had left them. Another horseman came riding swiftly to his comrade's aid. Whether because of some special keenness of sight or because of some other sense, the horse lifted and sprang lightly over them, but its rider did not see them, lying covered in their elven cloaks, too crushed for the moment and too afraid to move. And that's, I mean, it's not the end of the scene, but there's a row of stars, so.
Yep, seems like a good stopping place for the moment.
Right. Did I tell you, rows of stars made me think of it, did I tell you what I'm doing in my Patreon?
You did not.
I have started writing the blurbs for the book to go with the Element Oracle. So it's every spread will have, what am I doing here? It will have the element with all of its science, and then it will have the concept and a paragraph that connects the element to the concept, and then like a little how to read the card in a spread. And I'm not bothering with the science at the moment, but I am doing all of that intuitive stuff because that's where I feel more at home, and it's been super fun. And I'm like finding quotes. So it opens with a quote, and then here's the paragraphs, and and I've got some good ones, and some of them are about the concept, and some are about a very few are about the element itself. I got a good Burroughs quote for helium from
Mhm.
Chessmen of Mars, which I haven't read, but I've read a bunch of the Mars books, so I feel like I'm entitled to it. I wanted to use a quote that included the word helium because one of the cities is named Helium, the big one. And a conversation from another roadside attraction for hydrogen. And there's a bit in Mystery Science Theater where Mike's like, there's not a lot of meat, or he's trying to eat Crow's hand. He says, there's not a lot of meat on you, Crow. And Crow says, there's no meat, Mike. I'm made of molybdenum. So I've got that one covered. And yeah, it's this. So for the first time in my life, I've actually constructed an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of the 118 quotes. I didn't want to, but it's the only format where I could organize it by number, but also by quote, but also alphabetically, but also, yeah.
Yeah.
I needed to adult.
Well, I will tell you an Excel joke now that you're using Excel. Man goes to a job interview and the interviewer says, do you know how to use Excel? And the guy goes, yeah, I hate it. And the interviewer goes, an experienced user then.
I just hate that I needed it.
Sometimes only a spreadsheet will do.
Right? Found a good Jim Henson quote for beryllium, which is sophistication, and it's he said, the most sophisticated people I know inside, they're all children. And I'm like, yeah, that right there. So all of this is available to my patrons because everybody else will read it when it is published in 2 years, 3. I don't know how long this shit's gonna take.
So if you want to read it now, you should become a patron.
Yep. If I get 1,000 people to pay me $1 a piece, well, I sure as shit won't feel like I'm painting into the void anymore.
I'm so close to the end of this row.
I need to go say goodnight to Abby. He pays attention. If I don't come and say goodnight at 10, he's like, what the fuck, mother? Well, not verbatim, but...
I was going to say, whoa, his vocabulary is advanced. All right. Well, good night, and I love you, and I will see you on Sunday.
I love you too. I'll see you then. I hope you have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Cuidado.
Me amas.